have a list of the speakers here in order if we just introduce each other and see this? That'd be great. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here today as we celebrate the introduction of the No Ban Act. I want to thank Congresswoman Judy Chu, Senator Durbin, and Representatives Carson, Omar, Tlaib, and Beyer for your leadership on this important issue. And there are so many organizations that have been supportive of and are critical to this effort. There are nearly 400 organizations, communities of faith, nonprofit organizations, advocacy groups from across our country who have joined in supporting the introduction of the No Ban Act. I cannot name them all here, but I will briefly thank the Muslim Advocates, the ACLU, the National Immigration Law Center, Church World Service, and as I mentioned, so many more. And thank you to Farhana Kira, who's behind me of Muslim Advocates, to Keezer Khan, a well-known Gold Star father, to Rabbi Jonah Pesner of the Religious Action Center, and to Mana Karazi, who are here today to share their stories and their perspectives. Since President Trump first announced his Muslim ban more than 2 years ago, thousands of American families have been torn apart. This is family separation by another name. Thousands of American citizens have been forced to live apart from their spouses, their lives put on hold. Thousands of children will not get to spend time with their grandparents, and thousands of people have been denied the opportunity to either grieve the passing of a loved one or to celebrate a marriage or a birth. We are here today to elevate these stories and to address the root cause of this family separation, to remind people of the human suffering caused by President Trump's Muslim ban and that it continues today. It has not faded from the lives of the thousands of Americans affected, as it has faded from the front page of our newspapers, as we've been distracted by whatever crisis or reckless policy this administration has advanced on any given day. The suffering of these families is real, the pain is sharp, and it's time we band together to elevate a solution and to right this wrong. This pain was felt in my home community of Wilmington, Delaware, in a very particular way. My own mother, ever on the outlook for whether I am doing a good job as a senator, read an article in our local paper saying Delaware was one of the few states that had not welcomed a Syrian refugee family. She called me and said, "What are you doing about it, Senator? This is a disgrace." She also called the pastor of the church at which I was raised. My home church had welcomed a number of refugee families over decades. And in partnership, Jewish Family Services, Masjid al-Ibrahim, and Red Clay Creek Presbyterian Church came together. Money was raised, an apartment secured, a car bought, and we prepared to welcome a young family of Syrian refugees, a mother and father that had fled the neighborhood in Damascus that was hit by poison gas by the murderous regime of Bashar al-Assad. This young couple had actually met in a refugee camp halfway around the world and had a beautiful young daughter. I was excited about the very real way in which my home community was playing a small part in welcoming Syrian refugees. But that plan was derailed when on January 27, 2017, President Trump followed through on a campaign promise and signed the Muslim ban. And this refugee family was blocked, literally as they were waiting for their plane tickets to come to their new home in the United States in my hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. As things move forward because of the actions of many brave and determined individuals who went to airports, who went to courts of law, there was a brief pause because of a judge's action that allowed this family to make it to Delaware. There was a little window of grace. But there are so many other families, thousands of families, who were not that fortunate. That's why I'm here today with Congresswoman Chu and Senator Durbin and many other colleagues from the House and Senate, because we are committed to standing against hate and intolerance to end this cruel policy and prevent another baseless discriminatory travel ban from happening again. We recall President Trump's call as a candidate for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. We are clear-eyed this policy was not rooted in facts. It was not put forward to actually make us safer. It was rooted in hate. Rather than simply shaking my own fist at the television, I joined with volunteers from the bar around the country in filing an amicus brief opposing the president's travel ban in court. I worked with more than 150 members of the House and Senate to file at the district court level, then the circuit level, then the Supreme Court, through all the different versions, saying that we too will join with the faith community, with advocates, business and civil rights organizations to say, President Trump, your executive order is profoundly wrong and profoundly un-American. Several courts agreed, blocking the first and then the second and finally the third version of the Muslim ban. But ultimately, the Supreme Court of the United States upheld a reformulated ban, which I still believe to be a violation of what America is all about, to be a violation of our founding ideals. The Supreme Court never decided that the president's Muslim travel ban is good policy. It is not. And so today, all of us are introducing legislation to amend the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 to make it clear that the non-discrimination provisions of the INA apply not just to immigrant visas, but also to give it broader reach and meaningful teeth to say that our immigration policies must be based on evidence, not on fear, not on hate. Only by getting this bill introduced, passed, and signed into law can we be confident that this president or a future president won't abuse his or her authority in this way again. We're not in this alone. There are 400 civil rights, faith, national security, and community organizations who support the No Ban Act and who are calling on Congress to stand against religious discrimination. This includes the NAACP, the United Methodist Church, Amnesty International, a list so long I will not take the time to read it, but I urge you to review it because it includes private companies, organizations, even 50 immigration law professors. We will hear stories this morning from inspiring and dedicated individuals who will remind us how this ban has impacted their lives, their communities, and the people they represent. All of us are here together to say we will not be distracted. We will not stay silent, and we will not stop fighting this ban which profoundly violates our core values as a nation. It's now my honor to introduce the lead sponsor in the House, Congresswoman Judy Chu of California, who's been a great partner in shaping and introducing this legislation and is a tireless champion of civil rights and equality. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Judy Chu.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Coons, and thank you for taking the lead in the Senate and making sure that the No Ban Act gets introduced. And I thank all the advocates who are fighting day in and day out against these issues. I want to thank our many House co-sponsors as well. We now have over 60 original co-sponsors as we introduce the No Ban Act today, including Congress members Carson and Beyer, and our first two Muslim women in Congress ever, Rashida Tlaib and particularly Ilhan Omar, a woman who would not be standing here if Trump's hateful Muslim ban had been in place when she was fleeing war in Somalia for opportunity here. And I'm pleased to say that now that Democrats have taken over the House, we are going to have a judiciary hearing in June, and we feel confident that there will be a vote in the House to actually get this No Ban Act off the floor. Today we introduce the No Ban Act. The prejudice in Trump's Muslim ban is un-American. We do not judge aspiring Americans on their religion or nationality, but that's exactly what Trump is doing with this ban, which was so hastily rolled out as part of Trump and Stephen Miller's campaign to turn prejudice into policy. Certainly, I'll never forget the terrible day over 2 years ago when this ban was first unleashed. I was on my way to an event when I received a frantic call leading me to suddenly cancel and turn my car around. Trump's Muslim ban had gone into effect, and it was already creating chaos. The frantic caller asked me to do something to help 50 Muslims who'd had green cards, yet were detained at Los Angeles International Airport for hours. At that moment, I decided to drop everything and help in any way I could. I rushed over to LAX to advocate for these people. And once I arrived, I found out that there were not just 50, there were scores of more people with similar stories. People with a legal right to be here were kept for hours without food and blocked from receiving legal advice from attorneys. It was outrageous. And when I pressed the Customs and Border Protection for answers, they resisted and blocked me. I even got them on the phone only to have them hang up on me. Fortunately, I was right in front of a packed group of media outlets when they did it. So it demonstrated to the public that in his zeal to demonize immigrants who had the legal right to be here, Trump didn't care who CBP disrespected, even members of Congress. And it was clear to us on the ground that this policy was poorly conceived, hastily executed, motivated by prejudice, and causing enormous pain. That pain still persists. Every day, it seems I'm getting news stories of families torn apart by this ban. Sometimes it's a husband unable to get a visa to visit his wife here, or a child afraid to visit home because they fear they may not be let back in the U.S. And for many others, it's the case of the refugees fleeing Syria but denied entry here. And for them, this ban is a death sentence. We know America is better than this ban, and that's why this bill not only repeals all 3 iterations of Trump's Muslim ban and the asylum and refugee bans, but also changes our laws so that no other president can enact such a broad-based ban in the future without clearly articulating how such an individual poses a threat to the United States. This ban makes America less safe, endangers the lives of refugees who seek safety here, and tarnishes our reputation in the world. It has nothing to do with national security and everything to do with instilling fear of the Muslim community. But now, with this bill, we are fighting back. As always, America's future is in accepting immigrants and rejecting prejudice. So thank you, and now I'm so honored to introduce Farhana Kira, the President and Executive Director of Muslim Advocates.
Good morning. My name is Farhana Kira. I'm the Executive Director of Muslim Advocates. Today, as we gather here, mothers and fathers are separated from their children. Grandparents are separated from their grandchildren. And the sick are unable to get the medical treatment they desperately need, all because of Trump's Muslim ban. Now, the president would have you believe that this issue has quieted down or gone away. But that's not the case, and that's not the reality. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of Americans are fighting this ban because they are separated from their families and loved ones. And countless more Americans are standing up and fighting against this ban each and every day. And today, we take an important step forward. Nearly 1 year ago, to the day that we're gathering here, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments on a legal challenge to Trump's Muslim ban. And during that oral argument, the administration presented to the court that it had now, in its 3rd version, included all sorts of humanitarian exemptions and a case-by-case waiver process that would be utilized. But that's not the reality. According to data just recently released, of more than 38,000 waiver requests submitted in just an 11-month period from the end of 2017 to late 2018, only 6% of those waiver requests have been granted. The waiver process has been a sham. So what can we do about it? The answer is the No Ban Act. The No Ban Act will terminate the Muslim ban, and it will change federal law to ensure that no president can attempt to enact a religious ban ever again. I am so honored and privileged to stand here today with Senator Coons, Congresswoman Chu, and other members of Congress, and helping to introduce this important bill. I also want to thank the nearly 400 civic, faith, and civil rights organizations from across our country who are standing with the Muslim community in support of this bill. But today is just the first step. After today, we'll be rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work of ensuring that this bill becomes law, and we provide immediate relief to the thousands of Americans who are hurting today. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce Senator Durbin.
I'm honored to be here today. We're blessed to live in a nation dedicated to the dignity of all, and a nation dedicated to religious liberty and freedom. But in honesty, we know that there have been moments in our history when we have failed. Moments of Chinese exclusionary policies and immigration, Japanese internment camp, the rejection of Jewish refugees during World War II. Sadly, when the history is written of the Trump administration and what they achieved and what they failed to achieve, the first chapter is going to be the Muslim travel ban, the president's first act of office. In December 2015, then presidential candidate Donald Trump first called for a complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. The next day, he justified it by citing one of the darkest moments in our history that I've noted, the Japanese internment camps during World War II. Then, within a week of becoming president, Donald Trump put that ugly rhetoric into action and issued the very first version of the Muslim travel ban. We remember what followed. I can remember in the city of Chicago as attorneys streamed out to O'Hare International Airport to try to provide counsel and assistance to families that were stranded and fearful of their future. Initially, the federal courts joined us and stopped the Muslim travel ban. It was written and rewritten. And then, thanks to the efforts of Senator Mitch McConnell to hold a Supreme Court seat open for President Trump and the ascendancy of Neil Gorsuch to that position, he joined 4 other conservative justices across the street to uphold the ban last June. Listen to the words of Justice Sotomayor's dissent as she walked through the history of President Trump's anti-Muslim rhetoric and concluded that the ban was, quote, driven primarily by anti-Muslim animus. This is what she wrote. In holding that the First Amendment gives way to an executive policy that a reasonable observer would view as motivated by animus against Muslims, the majority opinion upends this court's precedent, repeats tragic mistakes of the past, and denies countless individuals the fundamental right of religious liberty. Because of that conservative majority on the U.S. Supreme Court, and because of President Trump, it is necessary for this third branch of government, our Congress, to step forward, speaking for the American people, saying clearly there will never be a travel ban again, and that any travel ban that is based on discrimination against religious belief is unacceptable, intolerable in this United States of America. I am happy to join my colleagues in Congress in pushing for this legislative response. I am sorry that we have reached this moment in history, but I think the overwhelming reaction today in support of our effort is an indication that men and women of all religions and those who do not profess a religion all share the same basic feeling of acceptance and tolerance. It is my honor to introduce another backer and supporter of this, Congressman Andre Carson of the state of Indiana.
Thank you, Senator. I particularly want to thank our bill sponsors, Senator Chris Coons, Congresswoman Judy Chu. It's good to have the faith community represented, Muslim advocates for Hana, rabbis, my sister Rashida, and I think Ilhan is on the way. There she is. Hey, buddy, good to see you. You know, it's hard to believe that it's been more than 2 years since Trump's shameful Muslim ban. Through ongoing court battles and heartfelt opposition, this discriminatory edict stands. Through it all, families, friends have been kept apart through life's milestones. Our reputation as a beacon of light of all continues to dim in the eyes of the world. And yet, our president digs his heels deeper and deeper into this very cruel policy. He claims that this is all in the interest of national security. Meanwhile, he ignores the growing threat of far-right nationalism and white supremacy. He refuses to implement common-sense reforms to curb our gun violence epidemic and throws our foreign policy into disarray by abandoning allies and siding with dictators. Rather than address all these crises, he thinks a blanket ban on millions of innocent people based on their faith is the key to keeping us safe. President Trump and his supporters may claim it's not about faith, but we've heard this rhetoric and we know better. As a Muslim and as an American who passionately believes in the ideals of equality, I cannot and we cannot simply stand by and let this very disgraceful policy continue. I'm a proud co-author along with my colleagues of the No Ban Act because we believe it's time for Congress to take strong action. All of us who share a commitment to religious freedom and human rights must come together to get this bill passed because it's our best hope right now to end the Muslim ban. We can and we will end this hateful policy. Take a bold stand against discrimination and Islamophobia and begin restoring our country's reputation. Today represents a very pivotal step in this fight. I'm now honored to introduce American legend, Wazir Khan, a man who has bravely stood up to this president and defended the honor of Muslim Americans and the contributions and sacrifices they have made in this country. Thank you for being here.
Senator Coons, congressional leaders, congratulations. This bill, I call it constitutional safeguard. History will remember you strengthening our democracy. In our people's democracy, forefathers and our constitution has devised a mechanism that when our government, our executive becomes too powerful, there is only one mechanism, there is only one way to control that, and that is legislative oversight. This bill does that. Look at today's environment. This imperial presidency with ever-growing greed for more power. The government is being run by the government's policies are being created and managed by those who are not elected, those who are not confirmed by the Senate, by the Congress. It's high time that we have such a mechanism to impose congressional oversight. And I do not wish to go because of the time limit. There are so many stories, but one angle I want all of you to remember: the lives and the families of those who wear uniform. Muslims, thousands of them. Funerals have been missed because they served. They have taken the oath to defend the Constitution, to defend this nation. They continue to serve. They have missed the births of their siblings, funerals of their parents, and other family affairs. They have not raised a voice. You are their voice. You are their voice. This bill not only imposes congressional oversight on this imperial president and his government, but it helps to lift the ban that has shattered so many lives and continue to affect so many lives negatively. I am so honored to introduce my dear sister, Honorable Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, to speak. She had been in the news quite a bit lately. I read her tweet last night. I have wrote it down, and the tweet says, that's her child's statement. We have come down to this. She says in that tweet, and her child had said, she has quoted her child saying, "Cut it out, you are president." Honorable Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Our children are sometimes wiser than the most of us, right? Well, I want to thank my colleagues for joining in this. When I ran for office, I ran on a promise to end the president's hateful effort to ban a single religion from entering this country. And I'm so proud today to join colleagues from both houses of Congress to introduce a bill that will do just that. I have said this before, and let me say it again. I believe this ban will go down in history as a moral stain on our country's history. When I was 12 years old, I myself came here from a refugee camp. It was a difficult journey, fleeing a horrible war. We spent 4 years in a refugee camp, seeking refuge in the United States. But I came to this country because I believed, even as a child, the promise of liberty, equality, and justice. That was the promise of the United States of America. 20 years later, it seems those fundamental ideals are in peril. My birth country is now on the so-called list of countries that are banned from coming into the United States. So I think about the little Ilhans who, like me, would also like to experience the American dream. They will no longer be able to fulfill that promise. Our president has made it clear that he seeks to advance an agenda of disdain and exclusion of Somalis and Muslims of other countries. The truth, as you all know, is that even in the face of court challenges, Trump has succeeded in his quest to create a religious test for entry into the United States. The government cut admission for Muslim refugees by 91% since 2016. In 2016, the Obama administration accepted nearly 40,000 Muslim refugees from around the world. Now that number is down to only 3,000. Visa approvals from the 8 Muslim majority countries included in the ban, including my home country, have plummeted 70% since 2016. This includes countries like Yemen, where the US is backing up the Saudi regime's unjust war, and yet denying people fleeing the consequences of that war a chance at a better life. Trump may not have gotten his border wall, but he's created an invisible wall, keeping out people around the world based solely on their religion. This is only the beginning, because the Muslim ban stems from an ideology that says it is okay to divide people based on their religion. This division for many families has meant that daughters are not able to have a wedding that includes their aunties and grandmothers. It's meant that families are not able to attend the funerals of their family members. It's meant that mothers Mothers can't be assured that they can be at the bedside of their dying children. This is based on an ideology that says certain people are less valued based on the color of their skin or the religion that they practice or the country where they were born in. And we must stay united in rejecting that ideology, because we know that no one should be banned because where they're from or what religion they practice. I want everyone to know that we will keep fighting until we're fully repealing the Muslim ban and put this hateful policy into the disdain of history that it belongs. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to my colleagues for standing up for what's right and making sure that the hope and the dreams of this country are still in the hands of members of Congress. Thank you. Oh, okay. Next is Mana, Executive Director of the Iranian Alliance Across Borders, whose family and community has been impacted by the ban.
Hi, my name is Mana Karazi, and I'm the Executive Director of Iranian Alliances Across Borders. The last time I spoke to my uncle in Iran, I told him he couldn't visit us anytime soon because of this ban. None of us knew he was sick. None of us knew that he would die from cancer before this dark chapter would end, that this ban would outlive him. Losing him was another tragedy that my family endured while apart. I was born in Iran, and I am Iranian American. I have paid for that identity with my loved ones and all the memories and the milestones I'll never get with them. For me and my generation, growing up without our families became our story. Our parents sacrificed so much for us, leaving others behind to war and conflict, and all for the hope of a better future for their children. It is to that future that I dedicate myself, to empowering our young people and to ensuring that their stories are better than mine. The young people I work with embody the very best of what it means to be Iranian and American. They believe in all of us and our ability to do good in this great experiment that is America. I stand here representing a young generation who have been made to feel invisible and unwanted, our families who have been torn apart by this ban, spouses, parents, and children forced apart, and the people facing tragic consequences while forced to go without life-saving treatments, all because of this terrible ban. We cannot allow the hatred fueling the ban to keep us apart, to play on fear and paint people like me as a threat, when it is that very hatred that is what most threatens us all. We must learn from our history and from the stories of the communities that came here before us to not repeat the past mistakes of generations who failed every community, including our Japanese Americans, who failed to uphold the most precious principles. We have a choice to make today in what we most value and aspire to be as a country. We must not reject the most vulnerable and turn our backs on those seeking refuge in America. We should not divide families and force so many of us to do little else but watch and witness our loved ones devastated by war, conflict, and even natural disasters, all while we watch from afar. Our legacy should be better. Our story must be of one of hope and inclusion, not hatred and isolation. The No Ban Act provides a ray of hope for my community and all of those who are banned, because it shows us that Congress can speak up in the name of the America that we aspire to be, the America that provided a refuge for my family when I was small. If you are a member of Congress who believes in a better legacy for our youth, you must join this bill. You must support it, and you must push for it to become law. Thank you to all of the organizers, the civil rights lawyers, the advocates who have been fighting for us and who are continuing to fight for us in the courts. That hasn't always been where progress has turned into law in this country, though. And for that, we must thank our champions in Congress. For Senator Coons, Congresswoman Chu, their staff, and all of you. To those who are here with us today and to the rest of the members of our Congress, we ask you to join us, including my members of Congress. I'll be asking you. Thank you to the allies who showed up at the airports, the vigils, the courts, and the rallies. We need you to show up again for us. We need you to ensure that we do not remain invisible as we do right now. And to the young people, the families, all of the people who are torn apart by this, the many communities that are affected by this ban, we see you. We hear you. We are here for you. We will fight for you until all of us are here with our loved ones. Ma shoma ra hargiz faramush nemikonим. We all deserve a better story. Thank you. It is my honor and esteemed privilege to introduce Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Hello, good morning. First of all, I want to thank the incredible political leadership and courage of Senator Coons and Representative Chu. I can't thank you enough for standing up and not waiting for us to get here, but you did it on your own, and I appreciate that so much. I can tell you, this is not about Islam or Muslims. This is about America, and this is an American issue, so don't let anybody tell you that otherwise. This is the fact that this is not only about religious freedom, but around this constant movement by this administration to call it, this practice of the other. I stand here with 3 incredible Muslim members of Congress. I stand here as many people who I share faith with who are afraid and are demonized and are othered and are told that they don't belong in this country through rhetoric from leaders and policies like this one here today that we're here to champion and change and stop. I am proud to co-sponsor the No Ban Act because banning people based on their faith should not be what America stands for, as you all know. But know that it's not only the practice of it, the mere announcing, the mere implementation of it has increased hate crimes towards those of Muslim faith in the United States of America. Know that that's the connectivity that I think is missing when we talk about this. This is not about people that haven't been here. This is about people that live here in this country. So many people want to join their family members. Every single day, my office gets calls from Yemeni Americans that are still waiting to hear about waivers that are never going to come. And every single day I hear cries of mothers, of spouses that want to be joined with their family members because their family members are dying of hunger, are in war-stricken countries. And it's so important that we all stand here and say this is wrong. And I don't want to wait for an apology from our country. I'm not going to do it this time. And we can't stand here and wait for it. They do it every single time, and it's about time we stop it immediately. Years of this, no matter what community is up next, we have to be at the forefront in saying apologies don't count anymore. You have to act and stop this hateful measure towards a whole faith, but a faith that really represents in so many ways what we don't want in our country. This other practice needs to stop in our country, and I don't care what faith, what sexual orientation, what immigrant status that you have, what your background is, no matter what it is, it doesn't belong in this country. And I'm so proud to be standing here with my colleagues to say that we won't wait for that apology. This is the time to stop it. Thank you all so much for, your incredible courage to stand up for what's right. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm introducing someone. Rabbi Pessner? Thank you so much for being here. He's the director of the Religious Action Center for Reform Judaism and senior vice president of the Union for Reform Judaism. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm a rabbi and leader of the largest denomination in Jewish life and most diverse, but joined here today by many, many members of my Jewish family across the Jewish spectrum. If you're part of our Jewish family, wave. Let us see you. Let our Muslim family see you. Let our Congress see you. And let all of America see you, because we are all here together, Jewish family, Muslim family, and the American family, to say one clear message. No ban. If you target one religious minority, you target every religious minority. In just a few short weeks, Jewish people will gather for our Passover Seders, and we will tell the story of our exodus from Egypt nearly 5,000 years ago. And we are commanded to show ourselves as if we ourselves came out of Egypt. So how do we show ourselves? We show ourselves by showing up, by acting, by demanding the end of all religious persecution anywhere and everywhere, including right here in the United States of America. We were too often have witnessed religious persecution. We have seen signs in our history: no blacks, no Jews. And we must be the generation that puts an end to such discrimination. We have keenly felt. Earlier, you heard the reference of the thousands of Jews who lost their lives in the Holocaust because they were turned away from entry to our country. I'm one of the lucky ones. My grandma Fanny, when she was 16 years old, saw the rabbi of her town in Russia dragged, tied to his beard behind a horse and dragged to his death. So she, by herself, got on a boat at age 16 and came to America. And thank God, the light of the Statue of Liberty was lit and welcomed her to this country. How many Fannies are there that are yearning to come to this country? This administration's ban, which we know is discriminatory, and we call on all of our partners on both sides of the aisle, because this should not be a partisan question. This is an American question of enduring American values, to become the country of welcome that we aspire to be. And let us not fall into the false binary, the false choice. We can ensure the safety of our nation and uphold our historic principles of religious freedom. For generations, immigrants of all faiths have known America as a land of opportunity. We drive our strength from our diversity. Muslims and Christians and Jews and people of all faiths and people of no faiths make this country as great. Let not the light of Lady Liberty dim. This is a time when so many millions of souls across the globe are fleeing religious persecution and discrimination. The United States needs to be the beacon of what our world ought to look like. The No Ban Act in Congress represents the commitment to end the administration's harmful travel ban from majority Muslim countries and vital protections to prevent similar executive action from being taken in the future. We call on Congress to pass the No Ban Act and ensure that America will become a welcoming place for refugees and asylum seekers. I close with a prayer. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu. God, who is the God of our mothers and our fathers, the God who is the God of those who escaped the slavery of Egypt and all the centuries of oppression. Hu yivarech et hapalitim. Please, God, bless, support, bring comfort to all those who are fleeing persecution. Amen. It's now my pleasure to welcome Representative Don Beyer for the state of Virginia.
I'm humbled and honored and very proud to be here to launch the No Ban Act. And I really want to thank my colleagues, Senators Coons and Durbin, Representatives Chu, Carson, Omar, and Tlaib for being part of this. We've been thinking about this and working about this for a long time, and I'm very proud to be included in it. But I want to make three quick points. First is I'm so sorry that it is only Democrats standing here today, because this should not be a partisan issue. This is not Democrat versus Republican. There are 200 Republican men and women in the U.S. House with us, and we need them to come stand with us together, because this is what it's about being an American. Second thing I'd offer is I think Donald Trump, in his hateful, divisive nativism and racism, fundamentally misunderstands who America is. We are a nation of refugees, and we are especially a nation of religious refugees. All of us think the Puritans, but it's the Quakers and the Huguenots and the Roman Catholics and the Jews, and even our own native-born religions like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who have fled other nations and even fled within our own nation religious persecution. That it is our religious diversity which defines us and makes us this exceptional nation. And the third thing I'd offer is that Fredericksburg is only 45 miles south of here, where Thomas Jefferson wrote the Statute of Religious Freedom. We're very proud of that in Virginia because it then became the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. If we consider ourselves Americans, we go to the very heart of what it means to be this shining city on a hill. It is that we welcome everyone, we love everyone, we respect everyone, and I echo the eloquence of all those who have spoken before me. This No Ban Act is the most important step we can take to erase this moral stain from our history. Thank you, and I'm now would like to welcome back Senator Coons and Representative Chu to take questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you to everyone who's been here to speak. The Congresswoman and I both have 10 o'clock hearings, so we'll take 2 questions if we might. Thank you so much for being here. Who's got a question for us? Great question. As long as the majority leader is someone who I believe is opposed to this legislation, as long as we don't have Republican co-sponsors, it will not get through the Senate. I look forward to the hearing in the House. I am grateful that every Democratic senator who is a candidate for president is a co-sponsor, but it lays out a marker about our priorities and our values, and I am hopeful that at some point we will secure Republican co-sponsors in the Senate.
Senator, do you have any indication that there are Republicans that are going to join you on this?
There are several Republican senators I have asked to co-sponsor. They are considering it. They have not yet said no. But given the visibility of this hateful ban in President Trump's campaign and in the first year of his administration, I am hopeful but not optimistic that we will have a number of Republican co-sponsors. Our history shows every time that we have indulged as a nation in hateful rhetoric and acted to exclude groups, whether it was the Chinese Exclusion Acts or Japanese internment or the shameful stain of turning away Jewish refugees from Germany, we have come to regret it. This is a basic fight over the soul of America and what it means to be America. This is just the latest chapter in a long fight between intolerance and exclusion and openness and a celebration of religious liberty. In the end, I think this bill is on the right side of history and is an important way to remind all of us that there are thousands and thousands of American families, as we've just heard, that continue to be impacted by this ban. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you to all the members of Congress who are co-sponsors.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would love to get a photo of you and Senator Coons.
How are you?